Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Econobox garage. In this week's episode on our Bugeye build, I plan to weld in the floor pan that I cut and trimmed in the previous video. So hopefully my welding skills will be getting better as I move along. Hope you enjoy this video. At the end of last week's video, I had the replacement panel all trimmed up. So this is what would be on the inside of the car, and I've got it all cleaned off where it's going to be welded. And you can see where these are going to be plug welded from the underneath here, plug welded from the top along here. This is where the butt weld will go, and this edge here will be where that flange is. And I'll just flip it over, and you can see I have the bottom side all cleaned up as well, ready to go. Again, this is that's where the flange weld will go, or the lap weld. Next steps, I've got to get all these edges inside all cleaned up. This is where the panel's lapped. You can see where the flange is just along here, and then this edge here is where the butt weld will be, and that. So I have to clean up this edge here, and you can see the holes punched in for plug welds along this side, and there's the same along the other side of this, and at the far end all the way along there, that's where it'll be plug welded, and down this edge here. Let's get to it. Okay, I've got now the top side cleaned up where it's going to be welded as best I can get in there with a bit of sandpaper and the angle grinder. There's more spots just over here, and there's a bunch there, along there, and along here, and also a bunch of plug welds are going to go in along here. Now fortunately, there's a hole where I can get my arm in to get the welder down to do this row of welds down in there. Otherwise I'd be doing it blind. So now that I've got this done, I'll get it flipped back over and get started on putting it all together. Before I get going on welding this floor pan in, I have treated all of these cavities with rust check rust converter, and it says converts rust to a paintable primer on all metal surfaces. So the idea with this is to stop any rust in those cavities, any surface rust that's already there. It'll break that down. And there's a few spots I have to clean off along here. Once that's done, I'll use this Proform weld through zinc coating on all of these joints, because they're going to get hidden. I won't be able to seal them up, and that way there won't be any bare metal. Now for both of these products, there will be a link in the description below, so you can check on those if you're interested. Well, I've spun the car over to the other side, which brings the floor pan down to a much more comfortable level to work at. Before I go any further with the welding, I'm going to reinstall the spring plate that goes right in here. The 4 bolts that go through the plate and to the reinforcing beam inside are here itself, and that's just a locating hole. But you can see here how mismatched, or the replacement panel is to the car itself. I've had to file these holes out to make the floor pan and the car properly. Now, in an earlier video, when I was taking this plate off, I drilled pilot hole directly through this part of the bracket and through the spring plate itself. I'll use that to align this end of the spring plate. These 4 bolts are pretty snug fit, so that should work there. Okay, I've got the spring plate bolted back into position, and my pilot hole, which you can see right there underneath the clamp, lined up perfectly. Now, before I go welding anything off on the pan itself, and before I take this clamp off, the spring plates are actually welded on right across here, and there's a couple of tacks like underneath this spot and up in here as well that I'll try and replicate. And these are where the spot welds were that I drilled out, so I'll do my best to fill those back in. But I think with the bolts and these and the weld across this spot here, I think we'll be fine, because the spring also gets clamped through all of this with these 2 bolts here that go through the end of the spring, and then these 2 holes here are for the big U-bolt. Yeah, so once that weld is all done, I can take the clamp off, and I'll just shoot some zinc primer on there just to seal it all up. I've already sprayed it with the rust converter, so that'll help. And yeah, it's nice to be bolting stuff back on the car. Well, there we have the spring plate installed again. Just filled in the holes where I drilled out the spot welds, and it's also welded in along here. Still not the prettiest of welds, but I'm getting a bit more confident with the welder. Well, I'm almost done with the welding on the bottom side of the floor pan. I think I'm finally getting the hang of doing the plug welds, and my other welds are getting better. I'm borrowing some Cleco fasteners from a friend of mine so I can make sure the floor pan actually meets the reinforcing rib on the other side. So he's going to drop those off tomorrow, and then I'll get going and finish off the bottom, and then I'll flip it back over and get the plug welds done on the inside, and that will be it for the welding on the passenger floor pan. Now, I did mention in the last video I'd probably be getting the seam sealer, but that won't happen until next time. Well, that wraps things up for this week's video. I didn't get quite as much done as I'd hoped, but pleased with the progress nonetheless. Please like the video, and if you haven't already subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did so. Just hit the bell icon so you get notified when the next video comes out. Next week I'll finish off welding in the passenger side pan, and we'll start to work on the driver's side. Thanks for joining me this week. We'll see you next time.